The night sky was heavy with smoke and fire, the stars above hidden by the dust of war. In the middle of this broken land walked a tall alien father, his skin marked with scars from old battles. His eyes, deep and burning with sorrow, searched every shadow, every broken road. For the one thing that mattered to him, his lost son, he had once been a warrior of honor, a soldier who carried the pride of his people, but the war between humans. And his race had stolen more than pride. It had stolen families, homes, and dreams for him. It had stolen the boy he loved more than his own life. His son had disappeared during one of the last great battles. Some said he had been killed, others whispered he had been captured by the enemy, but the father did not believe in death without proof. He held on to hope like a blade in his hand, sharp and unyielding. Every step he took was filled with memories. He remembered his son's laughter, a sound now only echoing in his mind. He remembered the way the boy had run through their homeworld's forests, chasing glowing insects that lit the dark. Those memories gave him strength. But they also cut deep. The guilt followed him, for he had once chosen duty over family. He had gone to fight when his son begged him to stay. Now, with every mile he walked, he wondered if that choice had cost his boy everything. The father's journey took him into the ruins of old colonies. The war had left nothing but silence and ashes. Cities stood empty, walls burned black, streets filled with broken machines of war. Some alien, some human, and all lifeless. Yet, whispers traveled faster than armies, and he had followed those whispers. They spoke of a human commander who had once been seen with alien prisoners. Perhaps among them had been his son. He traveled with little rest, hiding by day, moving by night. Humans still patrolled these lands, and to them, he was the enemy every time he saw their banners. Red and cruel against the sky, he felt the rage rise inside him. But rage could not bring his son back. He swallowed his anger and walked on. One night, he reached a burned village. Near the borderlands, the houses were empty, but in the center of the square, he found carvings on the stone wall, old symbols scratched in hurry by desperate hands. His heart tightened as he traced them. They were not human symbols. They were the language of his people. A message, rough but clear. It read, "Taken alive." The father's chest ached with both hope and fear. Taken alive meant there was a chance. His son might still breathe somewhere beyond the lines. He clenched his fists and looked toward the dark horizon where human territory stretched endless and hostile. He would go there, no matter the cost. The path grew more dangerous as he crossed into human ground. Soldiers marched the roads, watchtowers scanned the night. The father moved like a shadow, using his years of battle skill to stay unseen. Hunger gnawed at him, but he did not stop. His mission was greater than pain. One evening, while resting by a cold stream, he overheard two human scouts speaking. They were young, careless with their words. They spoke of a commander who had captured an alien child years ago. The commander had kept the child hidden. Though the reasons were unclear, the scouts laughed, thinking it foolish to spare an enemy, but the father's heart thundered in his chest. This had to be his son. The hope almost made him weak. He pressed his hand to the earth to steady himself. He could not show himself yet. He had to be patient. He had to follow carefully. The next day, he tracked the soldiers from afar. Their path led toward a fortress, high walls built of steel and fire. His alien eyes narrowed as he studied it from the hills. Inside those walls might be the answer to his endless search. His son could be there or his son's grave. The father's mind filled with doubts. What if his son hated him now? What if he blamed him for not being there when he was taken? What if he had already perished and only lies remained? Still, he knew he could not turn back. A father's duty was not to give up. Even when hope was thin, that night, as the cold wind swept across the land, The father whispered into the darkness. "My son, wherever you are, I will find you." His voice was strong, yet heavy with sorrow. He swore an oath to the stars, hidden behind the smoke-filled sky. He would walk through fire, through the heart of the enemy, through death itself, but he would not stop unseen. In the shadows of the human fortress, his journey was only beginning. The search for his son would soon lead him to a fate he could not yet imagine. For though he came looking for his blood, destiny was preparing to give him something different, something he never thought his heart could accept. The father stepped forward into the darkness, and the story of loss, hope, and an unexpected bond had begun. The fortress walls rose like a mountain before him. Lit by the glow of human fire lamps, guards walked the walls with rifles in hand. Their voices echoed in the night, sharp and harsh. The alien father watched from the shadows of broken stone. His heart beat heavy in his chest, somewhere inside. He believed lay the answer to his son's fate. He waited until the patrols shifted. His body moved with silent grace, years of battle teaching him where to step and when to pause. He climbed the slope behind the fortress, keeping low. The cold wind bit against his skin. But his focus was unbroken. He would not fail now as he crept closer. His ears caught a faint sound, not the harsh shouts of soldiers, but a low moan. It came from a ruined barn near the edge of the fortress wall. The father turned his head sharply. Instinct warned him to ignore it, to keep moving toward his goal, but something deeper inside pulled him toward the sound. He pushed open the broken door and froze. Lying on the ground was a human soldier. His uniform was torn, his arm bleeding, his face pale with weakness. The man looked up, fear flashing in his eyes as he realized who stood before him. Man, alien, the father's hand went to his blade. Rage swelled inside. Here lay the enemy, the same kind that had taken his son, the same kind that had burned his world. One strike, and he could end a piece of that hatred. Yet, as he raised the blade, his son's voice echoed in his memory, a memory from long ago. "Father, mercy is strength too." The boy had once said. The father's hand shook. His son had been kind, always seeing hope even in dark places. Could he betray that memory by killing a wounded man? He lowered the blade slowly. The human flinched, waiting for death, but death did not come. The father stepped closer. His voice was low, rough like stone. "Why are you here? Abandoned?" The human coughed, his voice weak. "My unit left me. I was too slow, too broken to keep up." He tried to sit up but fell back. His eyes were filled with both shame and fear. "If you are going to kill me, do it quickly." The alien father stared at him. His chest ached with anger. Not for the man, but for fate. He should hate this human, yet he saw something in him. Something that reminded him of loss. This was not a monster. This was another soul left behind. The father knelt and tore cloth from his own cloak. He pressed it to the man's wound. The human gasped in shock. "Why? Why would you help me?" "Because once I had a son," the father said softly. His eyes burned as he spoke. And he believed in compassion. The human's gaze shifted. Confusion filling his tired face. He had been taught aliens were cruel, heartless. Yet this one showed him mercy. For the first time, doubt touched his heart. The father lifted the soldier with strong arms. The man groaned in pain, but did not resist. Outside, the night was deep. He carried the human away from the fortress, moving through shadows. Every step was a risk, but he chose it willingly. When they reached safety in the forest, the father built a small fire. He shared his water, giving the human enough to drink. The man's eyes softened, still wary, still afraid, but touched by something he did not understand. "My name is Kale," the human whispered at last, his voice rough but steady. "I was a commander once." The father froze. the word struck. Him like a blade, a commander just as the scouts had spoken. Could this be the man who knew of his son? His hand tightened on his blade again. But he forced himself to listen. Cale looked into the fire, shadows dancing across his face. I have seen many things in this war. I have taken many lives. More than I wish to admit. He swallowed hard, and I carry the weight of them all. The father's eyes narrowed. Do you carry the weight of my son? His voice trembled with fury and pain. Cale's eyes widened. He said nothing for a long moment, then lowered his head. There was a child. Yes, he whispered. An alien? Child, taken prisoner long ago. I remember his eyes. They were filled with defiance, even in chains. The father's chest heaved. His hands trembled. Hope and rage burned together. Where is he? He demanded. Cale looked away. Shame carved into his features. I do not know if he still lives, he said slowly, but I can help you find out. The forest was silent. Except for the crackle of fire, the father stared at the human, his enemy. He had saved him when he could have killed him. And now this enemy might be the key to finding his son. His heart raged at the thought. But another voice whispered inside, the voice of his boy. Mercy is strength too. The father nodded once. Then we walked together, he said, his voice heavy. But unyielding, the human blinked in shock. You would trust me? No, the father said, his eyes cold. But I will use you until I find what I seek. The fire burned between them. Two enemies bound by pain and uncertain fate, and so began a fragile alliance, one that would carry them deeper into the heart of war, and into a destiny neither of them could yet see. The night stretched long and silent. The fire crackled low. The alien father sat across from the human commander, Cale. His sharp eyes never left the man's face. Cale shifted under the weight of that gaze. He knew he lived only because of mercy. Mercy he had never expected from an enemy. When the dawn came, the father stamped out the fire and rose to his full height. His voice was hard. You will guide me. You will show me where the prisoners are kept. Cale winced as he stood, his wounds still fresh. If we go toward the central camps, it will be dangerous for both of us, he said quietly. But I know the paths, I know the patrols. If you protect me, I will lead you there. The father nodded once. It was not trust, but necessity. Together, they began their journey through the ruined forests and broken fields that stretched between alien and human lines. The days were heavy with tension. The father walked in silence, his eyes always searching the horizon. Cale tried to speak at times, but the words often died in his throat. What could he say to the man whose son might have suffered under his command? Yet slowly, he began to tell fragments of truth. The war was never as simple as we were told. Cale admitted one night as they rested under the twisted remains of an old bridge. Our leaders, your leaders too. They wanted victory at any cost. They hid things from us. Twisted stories. Turned us into weapons. He sighed deeply. I was one of those weapons. The father's jaw tightened. He wanted to hate every word, but a shadow of doubt crept into his mind. He had seen how his own people's leaders had sacrificed soldiers. For pride, he had lost brothers and sisters not just to humans, but to the pride of his own warlords for the first time. He wondered if his son had been lost not only to the enemy, but to the greed of both sides. On the third night, danger came. A band of raiders. Neither fully human nor alien, but scavengers from both, ambushed them near the ruins of an old city. Their eyes gleamed with hunger, their blades and rifles ready. Kill them both, one raider snarled. One alien, one human. Their gear will buy us weeks of food. The father roared, his blade flashing in the firelight. Cale stumbled back, grabbing a fallen weapon, his body still weak, but his spirit alive with the fire of survival. Together, they fought. The father struck with the strength of a storm. Cale fired with desperate precision. The battle was fierce. Steel clashed against steel. Screams cut the air. The raiders fell one by one. But the fight left both men battered and breathless. At last, the silence returned, broken only by the hiss of blood dripping onto stone. Cale fell to his knees, panting. We would have both died without each other, he admitted, looking up at the alien father. The father wiped his blade clean. His voice was low. Do not mistake this for trust. We fight together because fate demands it, nothing more. Yet, even as he spoke, he felt something shift inside for the first time. He had fought beside a human, not as an enemy, but as a partner. His heart resisted the thought. But the truth was there. As they recovered by a small stream, Cale looked into the water, his reflection broken by the ripples. Do you ever wonder, he asked quietly, what all this war has cost us, what it has stolen? The father's eyes darkened. Every step I take reminds me, he said, his voice rough. It stole my son, Cale. Hesitated, then spoke with care. If he still lives, he will not be the same boy you remember. Prisoners are not spared kindness. They are broken, used, reshaped into something else. The father's hands clenched, his heart filled with both fear and fury. Then I will find him, no matter what he has become, he growled, and I will bring him home. Cale nodded slowly, something heavy in his gaze. He had seen prisoners before, seen what they became. He did not have the courage to tell the full truth. Not yet. Their fragile alliance grew with each step, not built on trust, but on survival. They shared food when they found it. They shared watch during the night. They even shared silence. A silence heavy with unspoken thoughts. Still, the father watched Cale carefully, searching for lies, searching for signs of betrayal, but Cale never ran, never turned his weapon against him. Instead, the man limped forward, carrying his own guilt like a chain. One evening, Cale finally spoke words that tightened the father's heart. Your son was strong, he said. I saw it. He never gave up. Even when others did, he had a fire in his eyes that no prison could kill. The father's breath caught. He wanted to demand more, wanted to seize Cale and shake the truth from him, but he held back. Mercy. His son's voice reminded him again. Mercy is strength. The path ahead stretched long and dangerous. Human patrols thickened, the ruins grew harsher, and the road too. The prison camps was paved with death, yet the father and Cale walked together. Bound by a fragile thread neither fully understood, enemies by blood, allies by fate. Their journey was far from over. And in the distance, destiny waited with a cruel hand. The days turned into nights, and the alien father and the human commander Cale pressed forward through the broken lands. Their alliance was fragile, held together not by trust but by need, yet with every mile, the father could not ignore the small shift in his heart. The man he once saw only as an enemy now walked beside him like a shadow bound by the same pain. The ruins of a city stretched before them, black towers crumbling into dust. The air was heavy with the smell of old fire. Cale stopped at the edge of the rubble, his face pale. I know this place, he whispered. Years ago, I commanded a unit. Here, we captured prisoners. Some of them children. The father's heart clenched. His hand tightened around his blade. His eyes burned into Cale. Tell me, he demanded. Was my son among them? Cale did not answer right away. His gaze was lost in the broken city. His voice shook. There was a boy. He had eyes like fire. He never bowed, even in chains. I remember him because he fought back. Even when he was beaten, the father's breath caught. His chest ached with both pride and fury. Where did you take him? Cale lowered his head, guilt pressing on him like a weight. We were ordered to move the prisoners to a hidden camp. Deep beyond the human lines, I do not know what became of him after that. I only know he was alive when I last saw him. The father's rage boiled. His hand flew to Cale's collar, dragging him close. Why did you not free him? His voice was thunder. You had the power, yet you left him in chains, Cale. Did not resist. His eyes were wet with shame. I was a soldier, he whispered. I obeyed orders. I told myself it was duty. But the truth is, I was afraid to disobey, afraid to be broken as he was. The father's grip trembled. For a moment, he wanted to end it, to silence the human who carried the truth of his son's suffering. But in Cale's eyes, he saw something he did not expect regret, deep and raw. He released him with a growl. Turning away, his hands shook with fury. You speak of duty, but to me, it is cowardice. He spat. Cale said nothing. His silence was heavier than words. He carried his guilt like a chain he could never break. That night they camped in the shadow of the ruined city. The father could not sleep. His mind was filled with his son's face, a boy standing strong even in chains. The thought cut him. His son had suffered while he fought battles that now seemed empty. Cale finally spoke in the quiet darkness, his voice trembling. Do you hate me? The father's eyes glowed faintly in the dim firelight. I should, he said, but hate will not bring my son back. Hate will not heal the wound in my heart and my son. He would not want me to drown in hatred. The words surprised Cale. He stared at the father, seeing not just a warrior, but a man carved by loss, yet still holding to compassion. Something stirred inside him, something he thought long dead. The next day they entered deeper into the ruins, searching for old records. Cale believed there might still be hidden data left behind by human soldiers who once occupied the city. Inside a collapsed building, they found a half-broken terminal. Dust covered its surface. But Cale's hands, though shaking, moved with experience. Sparks flew as he forced the machine to life. The screen glowed weakly. Old records scrolled across. Prisoner transfers, lists of names, coded files. The father's eyes scanned desperately, searching for any sign, any clue. Then he froze. A line of text burned into his vision. Leon Subject 47. Transported. Status live. His heart pounded. His son had been taken further north. Deeper into human territory, the truth both lifted and crushed him. Alive, yes, but still lost, still suffering. Cale looked at the record, his throat tight. If we follow this trail, we will reach one of the darkest places that humans built. A place where even soldiers feared to go. It is not a camp, it is a graveyard for the living. The father's fists clenched. His voice was iron. Then we go there. I will not stop. Cale nodded slowly, fear in his eyes, but also something else, resolve. For the first time, he was not walking for orders, but for redemption, as they left the ruins. The father spoke, his tone softer than before. You carry guilt. You cannot undo what has been done. But if you help me find him, perhaps you will learn the meaning of honor. Cale lowered his head, his voice low. Perhaps. The journey ahead was darker than any before. The records had given hope, but also painted a path into shadow. The father felt the weight of truth pressing against him. His son had been alive, but in chains, in torment. Perhaps broken, perhaps changed. Yet in his heart, he swore again to the stars. No matter what, I will find you, my son. Beside him, the human commander walked in silence, carrying both his shame and a growing spark of something new. The fragile alliance was no longer just survival. It was becoming something heavier, something that bound them beyond choice enemies. By war, but now tied by truth, their journey was no longer just about finding a son. It was about facing the sins of the past and discovering what it meant to choose compassion in the middle of hatred. And so they walked on, into the land of secrets and suffering, where the lost truth would lead them closer to a fate neither could escape. The road north grew harsher with every step. The alien father and the human commander Kale pushed through forests, turned to ash, and fields littered with broken machines of war. Each wreck was a silent reminder of lives lost, both alien and human. Yet the father's eyes never wavered from the horizon. His son was out there, somewhere beyond the veil of fire and steel. Kale followed close, limping on his wounded leg, but refusing to fall behind. He no longer walked only for himself. A strange duty pulled him forward, not the orders of generals, but the promise to help the father find his child. One evening, they reached the ruins of an ancient alien stronghold. Its walls were cracked, its halls empty. But deep within the ruins, an unnatural hum filled the air. The father's eyes narrowed. "This place still breathes," he muttered. His hand went to his blade. Hidden machines, long forgotten, still guarded the stronghold. When the two entered the central chamber, glowing eyes lit up in the dark. Massive war machines, shaped like iron beasts, rose from the dust. Their gears screeched, their weapons hummed with deadly power. Kale raised his rifle in fear. "Those are not human machines," he whispered. The father nodded grimly. "They are older. They were made to protect, but now they only destroy." The machines advanced, their steps shaking the ground. The father roared. Charging forward with his blade, sparks flew as steel met steel. The machines struck with crushing strength, yet the father moved like a storm. His blade cut through gears and wires, but still more came. Kale fired his rifle, the sound echoing through the hollow ruins. His shots tore into the glowing cores of the machines. Some fell, others pressed harder. Smoke filled the chamber, fire burned the air. They fought back to back. Alien and human enemies, once divided, now joined in survival at one moment. A machine lunged toward Kale, its claws ready to tear him apart. The father spun, his blade flashing, cutting the machine down before it reached him. Kale stumbled back, his heart racing. He looked at the alien with awe. "You saved me again," he breathed. The father did not answer. He only kept fighting. His strength fueled by the thought of his son. The battle raged for what felt like hours. Their bodies grew weak, their weapons heavy, but at last the final machine collapsed in a storm of sparks. The chamber fell silent, smoke curling toward the broken ceiling. Both men collapsed to the ground, their chests heaving. Kale laughed bitterly. "We should be dead," he said between breaths. The father wiped blood from his brow. His voice steady. "We live because we fought together." Kale turned his head toward him. Something strange in his eyes. Strange, isn't it? How survival makes allies of enemies. The father met his gaze, his voice low. "Do not mistake this for friendship. I fight for my son, not for you, but deep in his heart." He could not deny the truth. In that battle, he had trusted Kale with his life, and Kale had not failed him. They rested inside the ruined stronghold. The father stared into the flickering fire they had built, his mind heavy with memories. He thought of his son, of the boy who once laughed under starlight. He thought of the promise he had made to find him, and for the first time, he allowed himself to wonder, what if he was too late? Kale watched him silently before speaking. "I had a family once," he said softly. His voice carried the weight of sorrow. "A wife, a daughter. They died during a raid, not by your people, but by our own leaders' greed. They were sacrificed for strategy, like pawns on a board." The father turned his eyes toward him. He saw not a commander, not an enemy, but a man carved by grief. Just as he was, their pain was different, yet it was the same. Both had lost what they loved most. Kale continued, his voice breaking. That is why I cannot undo what I did to your son. I was a coward, yes, but also a slave to orders. And now I carry nothing but ghosts." The father's chest tightened. He felt both fury and pity. He wanted to hate Cale, but instead he saw a reflection of his own loss. "We both carry chains," the father said, his voice deep. "But perhaps together we can break them." The ruins grew colder as the night passed. But the fire burned between them, no longer a fire of survival, but a fire of shared sorrow. In the morning, while searching deeper into the stronghold, they discovered something hidden, a cracked console. Humming with ancient power, when Cale brushed away the dust, it flickered to life, projecting faint images, records of movements, transports, secret routes. The father's heart thundered as he leaned close. One record glowed brighter than the rest. It spoke of prisoners moved north into a facility buried beneath mountains. The same mark appeared on the record as on his son's transfer. Alien Subject 47. His breath shook. He was here. He was moved again. Cale read the record with dread. If this is true, then he was taken to a place worse than a prison. It is a place meant to erase souls, not just cage them. The father's fists clenched. His voice roared with determination. "Then we go there. No wall, no army, no machine will stop me. I will find him." Cale nodded slowly, his eyes filled with both fear and respect. "Then I will walk with you until the end." The stronghold walls echoed with their voices. Two men, once enemies, now bound by fire. Their alliance, tested by battle, had begun to change. Not yet trust, not yet friendship, but something deeper. Forged in pain, as they left the ruins, the father looked to the horizon. His steps heavy but strong. His son's face burned in his memory. And though the truth was dark, his resolve burned brighter. For he had walked through fire, and he would walk through more, until the day he stood face to face with his son again. The mountains rose like jagged teeth against the sky. Snow and mist curled around their peaks. The father and Cale climbed steadily, each step harder than the last. The air grew colder, the wind cut like blades. Yet the father's heart burned hotter than ever. He was closer now, closer to the truth of his son's fate. Cale moved behind him, his limp slowing him. His breath came heavy, but he did not complain. The path was steep, filled with broken rocks and hidden cliffs. More than once the father pulled him back from a deadly fall. Neither spoke much, but the silence carried more meaning than words. At last they reached a narrow pass in the distance. Hidden beneath the mountain, they saw it, a dark facility carved into the stone, high walls of steel, towers with watchlights, smoke curling from vents. The father's chest tightened. "He is there," he whispered. His voice was low but filled with iron. Cale's face was grim. "That place is not a prison. It is worse. It was built to break spirits, to erase what makes them who they are." The father's fists clenched. His eyes blazed with fury. "Then I will tear it down if I must." They waited until night, then crept through the shadows. The father moved with deadly silence. Cale followed, guiding him through hidden paths he remembered from old maps. At last they reached a side gate, guarded but not heavily. The father struck quickly, silent and sharp. The guards fell before they even knew death had come. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and sorrow. Cells lined the halls. The cries of the broken whispered through the walls. The father's heart ached. He searched each face, hoping, fearing, praying. At last they reached the records room. Cale forced the door open. Inside were files, scattered and dusty. The father's hands shook as he searched. His eyes locked on a familiar mark, Alien Subject 47. He opened it with trembling fingers. The record burned his soul. The words read, "Condition deceased." The father's world shattered. his knees hit the ground. His chest heaved with pain. His son, his blood, gone. His hope crumbled like stone. Cale stood in silence, watching him. His own heart heavy, he wanted to speak, but no words could heal such a wound. At last he whispered, "I am sorry." The father's roar filled the chamber, a sound of pain and fury that shook the walls. His blade cut the file in half. His tears burned his eyes. He had carried hope for so long. And now hope was crushed. But then, through the storm of grief, he felt something Cale's hand on his shoulder. The human's voice was low, steady. "I cannot give back what was taken. But I can give you this, my life, my loyalty, my strength. If you let me, I will walk with you, not as an enemy, but as family." The father lifted his head slowly. His eyes, red with grief, stared into Cale's. For a moment, he saw his son. There, not in blood, but in spirit, Cale was broken, scarred, filled with guilt, but also filled with a need for redemption. The father's chest ached. His blade trembled in his hand. He could end Cale's life, avenge his son, satisfy his rage. Yet his son's voice echoed once more in his memory. "Mercy is strength. Father." The father dropped the blade. His voice broke, but was steady. "Then I choose compassion," he said. "I could kill you, but I will not. Instead, I will take you as my own. You will walk as my son, and together we will live for those we lost." Cale's eyes widened. His lips parted in shock. "You would do that after all I have done?" The father's voice rumbled like the mountains. "I lost a son. I will not lose another chance. Blood makes family, yes, but choice makes family too. And today, I choose." For the first time in years, Cale felt something stir in his heart. A warmth, he thought, long gone. He lowered his head, his voice breaking. "Then I will honor that choice. Father, even if it takes my life." The two left the records room together. The father's grief was still heavy. But he no longer walked alone. He carried a new bond, forged not in blood but in compassion. As they moved deeper into the facility, alarms began to wail. Human soldiers stormed the halls, rifles raised. The father stepped forward. Blade in hand, Cale at his side. For the first time, they fought. Not as enemies, not as strangers, but as family. Steel clashed, gunfire thundered. The facility shook with their defiance. The father roared. Cale fired. Together, they carved a path through the heart of despair. The son he had lost would never return, but in his place stood a new bond. One chosen, one forged in pain and mercy. The father had found not what he searched for, but what he needed, in the middle of war, in the shadow of death. An alien father had adopted a human enemy, and in that choice he found a reason to keep living. Asterisk smoke curled from the burning walls. Of the human facility, the alarms had fallen silent, the soldiers either scattered or defeated. The father and Cale stood in the ruins, their bodies battered, their hearts heavy. Yet, though grief weighed on them, something new had begun to rise. The father gazed back at the broken records room, the place where he had learned the truth of his son's death. His chest still ached with the wound of that discovery. The pain would never leave him. Yet beside him stood Cale, alive, breathing, not as an enemy now, but as something more. They moved through the mountain passes in silence. Their journey had changed. No longer was it only about searching for the boy who was lost. It was about honoring his memory, about building something from the ashes of sorrow. One evening, they stopped in a valley where the river sang softly. The father built a fire. Cale sat close, his eyes lost in the flames. For a long time, neither spoke. At last, Cale broke the silence. His voice low, "When you spared me, I thought it was weakness. Now I see it was strength. You could have killed me 100 times, but instead, You gave me something I never thought I would find again." The father looked at him, his face still lined with sorrow. "What is that, family?" Cale whispered. The words struck deep. The father lowered his gaze, remembering his son's laughter, remembering the promise he had made to never stop searching. Though he had lost the boy of his blood, he had found another who needed him. A broken man, yes, but one who had chosen to walk beside him. From then on, their steps felt different. They hunted for food together, shared stories of their worlds. Cale listened to the alien tongue, learning words slowly, stumbling at times. The father listened to Cale speak of human cities, of songs and customs. They began to teach each other. Not just to survive, but to live. Danger still followed them. Raiders, soldiers, and the scars of war haunted every road. But they fought side by side. The father struck with the fury of a storm. Cale with the precision of a soldier. Each battle wove their bond tighter, not as enemies forced together, but as companions who trusted their lives to one another. One night, as the stars returned to the sky, clear for the first time since the war, the father spoke softly. "I once thought family was only blood, but blood can be lost, blood can be broken. Choice is stronger than blood. I chose to see you." As my son Cale's throat tightened, he lowered his head, his voice trembling. "And I choose to see you as my father." The words carried weight, heavier than steel. They were not spoken lightly. They were forged from battle, from grief, from mercy in that moment. Their fragile alliance transformed into something unbreakable. As the weeks passed, their bond grew stronger. Villages that once looked upon the alien father with fear now looked again, but with different eyes, for they saw a human and an alien walking together, not as rivals, but as kin. Some whispered it was a sign, a hope that perhaps the war could end one day. The father did not seek to be a symbol. He only sought to keep the memory of his son alive. Yet he realized something: his son's spirit lived on, not only in memory, but in the choice he had made. To adopt Cale in every act of compassion, his boy's voice echoed, "Mercy is strength." Cale too began to heal. He no longer walked with his head bowed in shame. He carried his past still, but no longer as chains. He carried it as a lesson. His heart, once filled with emptiness, now carried purpose. He fought not for orders, not for nations, but for the man he now called father. Their bond was tested again when human soldiers caught sight of them near the border. The men raised their rifles, ready to strike, but Cale stepped forward, his voice strong. "This alien is my family. If you call me human, then know this: I walk with him, and I will fight beside him until my last breath." The soldiers hesitated. None fired. Perhaps they saw the fire in Cale's eyes. Perhaps they saw the way the alien father stood like a mountain at his side. Whatever the reason, the rifles lowered, and the two men walked on, at last. The father and Cale reached the alien's homeland, a place scarred but still standing. The people there looked with suspicion at the human, but the father raised his hand. "This one is mine," he declared. "He is my son now, and no one will harm him." The crowd fell silent, for none dared challenge a father's claim. And so, in the ruins of war, a new family was born. The father had lost his blood, but he had gained something no less powerful. Cale had lost everything, but found the one thing he thought gone forever: a home. The stars above shone brighter that night, as if the universe itself bore witness. A tale had ended, but another had begun. Not of vengeance, not of hatred, but of compassion and choice. An alien father who went to find his lost son had instead adopted a human enemy. And in doing so, he forged a bond stronger than blood, stronger than war. A bond that would echo across the stars.